guys, I'm Layla, and today we're talking some Raid Shadow Legends, like AI concept art, right? It happens to be, I think, like the 30-year anniversary for She-Ra. So decided to do was ask Raid, about adding in She-Ra and Catra into the game. And that's what you're going to see here. We've been doing this series quite a bit, right? Like we did some solo leveling, we've done all kinds of fun things. We did Star Wars for Star Wars month, and all kinds of just really fun AI concepts. Drop me a comment down below on, what kind of concept would you like to see? What kind of, champ would you like to see in the game from like movies, pop culture, anime, games, anything like that. So today is going to be She-Ra and Catra. So I asked ChatGPT, I asked AI, if She-Ra was a champ in Raid Shadow Legends, what faction would she belong in and what would her kit be? And I always try to specify to keep within current branding and already choose an existing faction instead of being creative for something different. So they're saying here, if She-Ra was added to Raid Shadow Legends, her design would need to stay true to her source material and fit seamlessly. So this is what they came up with. Is they thought She-Ra would fit in the High Elves. What do you guys think about that? Do you like her in the High Elves? Now, their reasoning for High Elf is they said, bright, radiant design with celestial armor parallels the High Elf's aesthetic. So they're thinking about her design already. They think that that parallels the High Elves pretty well. Her origin as the Princess of Power ties well with the High Elf faction's nobility, discipline, and light-based powers. And they say, like Arbiter, She-Ra has a chosen champion kind of feel, which makes her ideal for key lore characters on the High Elf roster. So I'd love to know what you guys think. Do you think High Elf fits her, or would you have liked to have seen her somewhere else? Now, here we go for some of her abilities. As they say that She-Ra is going to be, she's the She-Ra Princess of Power. And they say she's going to be like a legendary support hybrid. And they actually have her as Void Affinity. And they said they did this to symbolize her balance of light and magic. And they say it fits well with her being a legendary heroine and a counter to all evil. And here's her abilities. So they say for her A1, they have Blade of Protection. It's going to be a single target attack. Hit an enemy and heals the ally with the lowest HP by 10% of her max HP. If the target's under a decreased attack or a stun, places a shield on the champ. And it says that there's like a visual here. As they said, visualize her sword glowing with radiant light as she slashes with precision. A2. For the honor of Grayskull, we have a 3-turn cooldown. They're saying this is going to be like an AoE buff cleanse. It says removes all debuffs from allies, then places a 50% increased attack and 25% increased defense buff on all allies, and fills turn meter by 20%. So for the visual on this, they say She-Ra does her signature sword raise, right? So she raises her sword and light pulses across the battlefield for the honor of Grayskull. Her A3 they call Princess Strike with a 4-turn cooldown. So they're looking at this as like a single target nuke CC crowd control. So they're saying attacking an enemy ignores 50% target's defense. If the enemy is killed, places a stun on all remaining enemies for a turn. If the enemy survives, places block active skills for 2 turns. And with this visual, they say the cinematic is going to be like a dash with a high impact kind of empowered strike. And her passive is the Heart of Etheria. Whenever this champ or an ally receives a debuff, has a 50% chance of blocking it. Also, reflects 15% of the damage taken back to the attacker when an ally is under a shield buff. So here's her kit. I would love to know what you think. Do you think that they did a good job? Do you think they did justice for She-Ra? And her aura is going to be increases ally defense in all battles by 33%. I can see that being pretty accurate. And of course, I had to ask for a lore snippet, so here we go. Summoned from the realm where magic and honor intertwine, She-Ra channels the power of Etheria to bring hope and strength to Teleria. With her radiant sword and unshakable will, she stands unyielding against the darkness. So I'd love to know what you guys think of this and for the character design. I think they did a good job trying to make it kind of fit within the game. And also, like, we had He-Man and Skeletor not too long ago, so I feel like it's kind of comparable to what they did. So this happens to be She-Ra. So, of course, having She-Ra in the game, we also had to ask for Catra. Same thing with ChatGPT. I was specific on asking, what faction would she belong into, what would her kit be like, but also to stay within the current branding and choose an already existing faction. So they said if Catra from She-Ra and the Princess of Power were adapted into Raid, her design, personality, combat style would naturally fit into the game's dark fantasy world. And they're right about that. Particularly emphasizing her evolution from a cunning rogue to a fierce but emotionally complex warrior. So with Catra, they think she fits the Dark Elves. What do you guys think? Is that a good fit for her? And they said the Dark Elves are a perfect match for Catra because this faction includes morally ambiguous, stealthy, cunning characters who often walk this line between villainy and redemption, just like Catra does. They said her feline agility, emotional intensity, and arc from antagonist to anti-hero align with the Dark Elf lore and themes. And you know what? I can't argue with that. I think that's actually kind of spot on. I feel like I can't argue with it. So with Catra, they have her name as Catra the Shadowclaw Defector. And so with her, they have a legendary attack Void champion, again in the Dark Elf faction. So I'd love to know what you guys think about that. And here is her lore. Once a loyal enforcer of a brutal regime, Catra clawed her way to power through betrayal, ambition, and ferocity. But power comes with a price. Haunted by the past and driven by fractured loyalties, she walks a shadowed path, never quite friend or foe. Her strikes are as precise as her wit is sharp, and her rage, once unleashed, knows no bounds. All right, that is her lore. Now, it is true she's literally a cat and could be in Skinwalkers, so I guess I could kind of see that as well, too. Unless they kind of go around the ways of, like, she makes her armor or herself look more feline than her actually being feline. Because in that case, we could look at some of the Dark Elves who have, like, this insect look to them, and then of themselves aren't necessarily insects, but, like, their armor and their aesthetics are. So I guess there's kind of a balance. So I can see why ChatGPT chose Dark Elf for her, for like personality and her character, not so much her looks. But I'd love to know what you guys think. All right, skills. A1, we have Feral Slash. Attacks an enemy and has a 50% chance of placing, a 30% decreased defense for 2 turns. Damage plus 20% debuff chance and a 25% too with the upgrades. And says, I'm not holding back anymore. A2, Whiplash Ambush has a 3-turn cooldown. It's an AoE, placing a 60% decreased attack debuff for 2 turns. Enemies under stun or fear take 30% more damage from this attack. Strike first, strike hard. A3 is called Shadow Reversal. It has a 5-turn cooldown. So this removes all debuffs from this champion and places a counterattack and a perfect veil. Also grants an extra turn if any debuffs are removed. You think you know me? Think again, is what it says. And her passive is called Scorned Survivor. Each time an ally is hit with a critical hit, has a 50% chance of placing a fear on the attacker for a turn. Heals this champ by 10% of max HP when an enemy under fear or stun is killed. And her aura increases ally attack in arena battles by 33%. So with this, and here we have like the summary for her, right? Is they have Catra as a hybrid damage debuffer with like CC controlling elements. And they have her built for arena and faction wars. It seems like that's where they're primarily placing her. She has tactical disruption with fear, decrease of defense and attack, AoE pressure with like this ambush style of attack. And they did some survivability and mobility with veils and counterattack and self-heals. So they basically, to summarize it, they said this keeps true to her character. They have her quick, strategic, emotionally charged, and dangerous when cornered. And they think this fits in nicely with Raid's established gameplay meta and also with the Dark Elf faction identity. So what do you guys think? I would love to know, how do you think AI did with She-Ra's concept and her art, and also with Catra, with her art concept and with the design? I would love to know what you guys think. Drop me some comments down below. I find this to actually be just kind of fun, right? Just to kind of visualize who some of our favorites are. Like, I know for me, we did some solo leveling. I love solo leveling. Eventually, I might try out stuff like Dragon Ball Z and Sailor Moon and just like stuff that I really like as well too. But even Street Fighter. Street Fighter could be fun. Mortal Kombat. I mean, honestly, kind of the sky's the limit. So I would love to know. Drop me a comment down below on, if there was a champ you could add into Raid, like any kind of champ. It could be like movies, gaming, anime, you kind of name it. I would love to know what you guys think, what you'd like to see. And who knows, maybe I'll end up doing some. I like to kind of do them in duos, you know what I mean? Guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this.